Hey guys, what is up and welcome back to the channel. This is my full and complete setup guide for Cemu Emulator's latest version 1.19.0. This guide is going to walk you through all of the best steps and settings, giving you the best possible performance, stability and experience with any game you could want to play on this emulator. I'm also going to show you how you can use the brand new Async shader compile, which is a brand new feature available on the Vulkan API in this very release. This new async shader caching basically removes all shader cache stutter when using the Vulkan API. If you want to check out how it works, you'll find my video explaining it down in the description of this video. Otherwise, let's jump straight across to my desktop and get this setup guide started. As usual, everything you require for this guide can be found down in the description. All you really need is this Cemu zip file and this Cemuhook file. I'm now going to first of all show you how you can update an older Cemu version to its latest version. All you need to do is find your old Cemu version and launch it. Upon opening, you should get a prompt that there is a new update available. All you need to do is click yes, and it's going to begin downloading, extracting and installing this new Cemu update. Just click the update button and it's going to do all of this automatically. Then click restart and it's going to restart, and there you go. You're now updated to Cemu 1.19.0 or the latest version at time of making this video. In case you haven't activated automatically checking for updates, make sure to open a general setting and tick this box. Upon doing this, you can restart and reopen Cemu, or you can click help, check for updates. All three of these options do the exact same thing, update you to the latest Cemu version. Now, in the event that you want the best possible performance and a fresh Cemu setup, I'm now going to show you how to do that. As I said, you just need your Cemu zip file. First, I'm going to right click it, use 7-zip and extract it to a folder of its own. Once that's done, I'm going to drag this to the center of my window. Then I'm going to open this folder. Into this folder, you want to drag and drop your zip file which you've downloaded for Cemuhook, then right click, use 7-zip and select extract here. This is going to give you a DBG help and keystone.dll, as well as the shared fonts that you would usually download with Cemuhook. I've provided them in this zip file since from time to time the downloader for the shared fonts just does not work. Once you're done with these zip files, you can simply delete them. The next thing you want to do is right click your Cemu exe. You want to then come to properties, compatibility, and you want to make sure to disable full screen optimizations. Run this program as administrator, then click change high DPI settings. You want to make sure to have this box and this box ticked. Then you're going to click OK, click apply, and you are now done with Cemu compatibility settings. The next thing we're going to do is launch Cemu Emulator for the very first time and complete its getting started section. This is pretty easy. All we need to do is set up our custom MLC path and our custom game path. It is into this MLC01 folder that you're going to be storing your game updates, DLCs and game saves. To set this up, simply click browse, then navigate to an area on your PC that you have a lot of storage space, or if you followed one of my guides in the past, select your MLC01 backup that you would have previously made. If you're making a new one, all you need to do is make these two folder paths, Cemu Emulator Backup, make this MLC folder like so, then simply highlight it and click select folder in the bottom right hand corner. Once you've done this, that's your MLC folder set up. Next, we need to set up our game paths. Again, click browse, then you want to navigate to wherever on your computer your Wii U games are stored. Now please make sure to select the folder containing all of your games and not the individual games. For me, I just select my Wii U games folder, highlighted, click select folder, and that's all of this done. My MLC and gamepad folder is now set up. Next, we're going to click download community graphics packs. This is going to download, extract and install all of your graphics packs for use with all your games. Once you're finished with these three stages, click next. On this screen, while you can configure your inputs, I'm not going to recommend it since it can fail to save. So all you want to do in this section is activate automatically check for updates. Then we're going to click close to close this getting started window. Your games should now be appearing in your window like so. If you have a notification asking you to download shared fonts, please make sure you're using the Cemuhook zip from this video's description, otherwise you're going to have to download them by clicking the button in the bottom of the window. In the event that you've not installed your game updates or DLCs, I'm going to show you how to do that in just a moment. For now, I'm going to show you how you can optimize the emulator for getting a much greater performance. You want to right click on your desktop, and if you have an Nvidia GPU, select Nvidia Control Panel. Once this window opens, you want to come to Adjust Image Width Settings, select Use the Advanced 3D Image Settings, and then click Take Me There. Next, you want to come to Program Settings, then once this window loads, click the Add button. Now, if Cemu Emulator does not appear in this window just like it does here, what you want to do is click the Browse button in the bottom right hand corner here. Then you want to navigate to on your computer wherever you have installed Cemu. You can see that my current Cemu installation folder is right here. Simply select your exe, click open, and then you're going to be applying these exact settings. On my own systems, I like to disable VSync since I do think it slightly affects performance to leave VSync enabled. However, if you have any issues, set it to either adaptive or fast. Next, you're going to be setting triple buffering from off to on. Threaded optimization wants to be turned from auto to on. Then you want to set power management mode to prefer maximum performance and set your OpenGL rendering GPU to your actual GPU. These 4 settings here are by far the most important settings for the best performance, especially so if you're going to be using OpenGL, since threaded optimization can boost your performance by between 20 to 50%. Once you have all of these settings applied, you can close the Nvidia control panel. We're now going to reopen Cemu and start setting up the additional settings to get the best stability, performance, and usability out of this emulator. Okay, so the next thing we're going to be doing is coming to Options, Input Settings, and this is where we're going to be mapping our controllers. Personally, I use a DualShock 4 controller paired with DS4 Windows. I think this is one of the best controllers for emulation since it has so many features, especially so a gyroscope for motion data input. Please make sure to use the DS4 Windows version you'll find in this video's description, and also make sure to enable UDP server. This will allow you to use motion controls on this emulator if you're using a DualShock 4 controller also. Next, you're going to be setting your emulated controller to the Wii U gamepad. For controller API, you're going to select X input, then you're going to be selecting your controller from this drop-down window. I'm now going to just quickly set up my controller bindings. Please, if you're having any issues, just look up the layout of a Wii U Pro controller or Wii U gamepad and map your buttons accordingly. For this blow mic button, I set this to F on my keyboard. By clicking this additional settings option here, you also get access to a rumble, which I myself usually leave at around 0 to 10%. I'm just going to leave it at 25 or 26 for now. Don't touch button threshold since it can break input for some games, and if you have any drift on either of your thumbsticks, you can also adjust the dead zone for said controller with this slider here. On my controllers, I generally set them to 15%. Once you're happy that everything is correctly mapped, all you need to do is enter a profile name here. I'm just going to call this DS41, click save, and there you go. You can see my DS41 profile is now ready to be loaded and used at any time. Now, if you're going to be playing other games on this emulator that have a local co-op, make sure you map the first controller always as Wii U gamepad and every additional controller the Wii U Pro controller. This is just how it's done on the Wii U, so it's the exact same on Cemu. Just make sure that the first controller is always a Wii U gamepad and every additional controller is a Pro controller. Once you're happy with your settings, you can close this window. Next, I'm going to show you how you can activate motion controls if you're using a DualShock 4 controller. All you need to do is come to Options, Gamepad Motion Source, and set it to DSU. It should be appearing like so. The inputs may not be the exact same, but if you've enabled UDP server as I previously did in DS4 Windows, this is how it should appear. Now, if you're using another application, for example BetterJoy for your Nintendo Switch Pro controller or Joy-Cons, it should be exactly the same. All you need to do is map your controller as X input and it should appear in the exact same way, Gamepad Motion Source DSU1, and make it appear by slot. This is how you activate motion controls for any of your games on a Cemu emulator. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is go over some general settings. First, I'm going to show you some easy tooltips you can do with the GUI. To add a game as a favorite, simply right click it and select favorite. I'm just going to add Breath of the Wild, Wind Waker, and Super Smash Bros. So that these games will appear at the top of my list, giving me easy access to them at all times. Now, the next step is by far one of the most important for getting the best performance. You want to right click your game and select Edit Game Profile. It is in this area that you can adjust the core recompiler. You are going to need to set your CPU mode to match the amount of CPU cores that your own physical CPU has. Settings wise, there's not really anything we need to change here. While you can set a specific controller, there's really no need to do so. All you need to make sure to do is in this general setting, make sure you're using 100,000 threaded quantum and the correct CPU mode and recompiler for your CPU. For other games like Super Smash Bros, for example, it is a little bit more complicated, and while for all games you should use 100,000 for threaded quantum, for some games, even though you can run them with triple core recompiler, you may in fact get better performance or stability when using single or dual core. For these games, it's best to experiment and see what kind of performance levels you get yourself. On the topic of performance, it is also very important that you update your games to their latest version. For Breath of the Wild, you need version 2.08 for this game to work in its most optimal state. To install game updates or DLCs, click File, Install Update or DLC, then navigate to wherever on your computer you have stored your game's updates. You can see my Breath of the Wild update version 2.08 is right here. To install it, you want to navigate into its subfolders like so. You want to find its meta folder. In here you will find a meta or meta.xml file, select it and it will begin installing your game's update or DLC. As I said, it's very important to install your game's latest updates. For example, if you want to play Breath of the Wild at 60 frames per second, the FPS++ graphics pack absolutely requires that you have version 2.08 of the game installed, otherwise that mod is just not going to work. Similarly, if you want to install any game's DLCs, simply come back to their DLC folder. Again, find your DLC's meta or meta.xml file and then simply select and install it. Again, since I have mine already installed, I do not need to reinstall it once again. That's pretty much it. That's all you need to do to install your game's latest update and DLC. Again, for a final time, please make sure that you do install these. Next up, we're going to go over some of the emulator's more advanced settings. These again are very important for getting the best usability and performance. You want to come to Options, General Settings. In this section, most is already done. I would however advise turning on these two Remember Window Position options. You can also change your interface language from this drop-down window here. Personally, I just leave it at default. Next, we're going to be moving over to our Graphics tab, where we're going to be taking a look at the Graphics API sections. Now, if you want the best possible performance and you have an Nvidia GPU, you should be using OpenGL. However, with the recent additions and optimizations to the Vulkan API within Cemu, you can get very similar performance and basically no shader caching stutter at all when using Vulkan. So if you have a GPU that has at least 4GB of VRAM, you should definitely be using the Vulkan API. Now for VSync, you can set this to double or triple buffering. Personally, I just leave this setting at off since we've already handled it in the Nvidia control panel. Now, if you're using a lower spec GPU, especially an Nvidia one, you should try out OpenGL, and if you disable full sync at GX2 drawdown, it can also net you a nice little performance boost. If you want the game to render and run as accurately as possible, make sure to keep this setting enabled. Again, if you're using an AMD GPU, make sure you're using Vulkan and have your graphics device set. Otherwise, you basically just want to copy the settings I have on screen right now. Personally, I disable controller profiles and friend list, leaving shader compiling enabled within my window. Next, we're going to move on to audio. For audio API, we're going to be changing it from direct sound to X-Audio 2, leave latency as it is. For TV, you're going to be setting this to a primary sound device. I personally set this to surround. For gamepad, you're going to be changing this from disabled to primary sound driver. Again, this is only optional in stereo, and make sure to turn this up to at least 50% so that you can actually hear the audio device. Next, we're going to move across to the account setting. Here is where you can create additional accounts. This is very useful if there are multiple people using Cemu Emulator on your computer. All you need to do if you want to create a new account is click the create button. When you do this, all you need to do is enter the account name. I'm just going to call it account 2. Click OK, and there you go. You can see both additional accounts. Apparently I already had an account 2 set up. If you want to delete any accounts that are not in use on your system, simply highlight them like so in active account, then click the delete button, select yes. Again, I'm going to delete the other account 2, deleted, select yes, and there you go. I only now have one active account, my own main account. This is basically all you need to do. Please take note that each of these accounts that you create all use different and independent saves. Once you're happy that all of your settings are complete, you can close this window. We're now finished with the general settings. As of Cemu 1.19.0, within debug you'll find experimental and async compile. This is one of the best features that has been added to Cemu in a very long time. When using Vulkan and this experimental setting, it basically removes every single bit of shader compiling stutter from any gameplay. At time of making this video, you need very specific drivers to be installed on your system in order to use async shader compile. You can see here that the driver version I'm currently using that supports it is Nvidia's 1.2 Vulkan beta driver number 443.15. For AMD GPU users, you need their 2020 edition 20.3.1 driver or higher. You'll find links for both of these drivers down in this video's description. Moving back to our debug tab, once you've turned on Async Compile, there are also a few other settings we're going to be enabling here. We're going to be leaving a custom timer at Cemu default 1x speed, timer accuracy wants to be set to 1 millisecond, and we're also going to be activating use Cemuhook H.264. While Cemu does natively support this video playback format and also motion controls, many of you out there in my community have found issues with the stability and usability of motion and Cemu's video output, so until those are improved a little bit, we're going to continue to use these Cemuhook versions. Lastly, if you are a Ryzen CPU user, you may get better performance by swapping from all logical cores to first or last physical cores. This section is mostly experimentation, so if you're seeing a weird performance, just change between these different CPU affinities to see how it affects your performance. Lastly, we're going to be setting up our graphics packs. I'm going to be using Breath of the Wild to show you pretty much how all graphics packs are editable. For this game we have advancements, graphics, mods, and workarounds. Starting things off with enhancements, the first thing I would advise is turning on clarity. This graphics pack is a visual preset that changes the visual stylings of your game. Personally, I really like the Surfrost preset, though you can change between these live in gameplay, so please just find one that fits your playstyle best. You can also enable no depth of field, this can help your performance a small bit. Moving on to graphics, we're going to be turning on resolution and shadow resolution. For resolution, come over to this window once it's highlighted, then we're going to be selecting which resolution you wish to use. Now if you have a very powerful GPU, you can even use higher resolutions like 4, 5 or 8K. However, for the purposes of this guide, I'm going to be recommending using 1920 by 1080. Again, similarly for resolution, you can also adjust shadow resolution. I would not advise turning on extreme since it's going to make your game crash regardless of CPU. I myself only use medium, though if you have a very powerful GPU, you can set it to high or ultra. As I said, I'm going to set this to medium. Moving on to our mods section, this is where we have some very nice tools, especially so the FPS++ graphics pack. You basically want to expand this tree and activate all 4 of these graphics packs. It is these 4 graphics packs that allow you to play The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild at 60 frames per second. Please make sure that you activate all 4 of these graphics packs. The only thing that you may want to change at any point in gameplay is this FPS cap. At certain points of Breath of the Wild, there are specific bugs. The most notable one is the Thunderblight Ganon boss. For this fight, you are going to be required to set your FPS cap to 30 frames per second. Once you have completed that boss fight, you can change it back to 60 frames per second. Please, if you have any strange bugs or crashes in this game, try to set your FPS cap to 30 instead of 60 and see if that solves your issue. The final thing we're going to be taking a look at is the graphics workarounds. These are GPU specific workarounds, so all you need to do is make sure that you activate for your GPU whichever graphics packs apply to it. For example, if you're using an Nvidia GPU and OpenGL, only turn on the graphics packs that specifically say Nvidia or OpenGL. Similarly, for Intel or AMD, do the exact same thing. Please remember to only activate the graphics packs that apply to the API you're using, be it OpenGL or Vulkan, and your own specific GPU, be it Intel, AMD, or Nvidia. Once you're happy that you have successfully applied all of these graphics packs correctly, you can close your emulation window. I'm now going to show you how you can optimize your computer even further to give you even greater performance and stability. The first thing we're going to do is apply some power profile settings. Right-click your Windows icon, come to Power Options, then once this window opens, select Advanced Power Settings. You need to make sure that instead of using a Power Saver or Balanced Power Plan, you are using the High Performance Power Plan. This setting alone can greatly help your performance in pretty much every game and emulator, especially so if you are a laptop user. Next, we're going to be opening our Windows search bar and we're going to search for Control Panel, then simply open it. From this section, we're looking for System and Security, then we're looking for System, then once here, we're looking for Advanced System Settings. It is this System Properties tab we're looking for, mainly this Performance area. Click Settings, then again come to Advanced. we are looking for this virtual memory area. What you want to do is click the change button, and we're going to be applying a virtual memory pool or a page file to your system. I would highly advise setting this to a custom size of 10,000. Even though I have this set to 25,000 for my own personal editing needs, you should set this to 10,000 custom size for both initial and maximum size, then click set. For the majority of people using the same size as I use, 25,000 is going to be completely overkill, so I would highly advise just using 10,000 for both of these values. Again, as I said, click set, then click OK and make sure to apply all of these settings. In the event that you've never activated a page file or virtual memory pool on your system before, please make sure to restart your system now, as this may be required to initialize this page file. Other than that, you're basically now done with Cemu Emulator setup and optimization. If you followed all of the steps and settings shown in this video, you're gonna have the best possible performance and experience on all compatible games across this emulator. Especially so if you've activated the Async compile setting that comes with this new version, you're gonna have an awesome time in gameplay, even if you do not have a shader cache from playing a game before. For now at least, that's going to be the end of this guide and video. Once again guys, thank you all very much for checking it out, I greatly appreciate it. As always, remember to like this video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see all future videos from me.